going down, bond is going down.
This is the Presidential Quarterly Business Forum, which has in attendance the Vice President, Ministers of Budget, Finance, Trade and Industry, and Captains of Industries. Concentration of talks in this meeting is also on efforts to tackle headlong the economic recession in the country. The Vice President insists the issue of constant electricity, security in the Niger Delta and other areas of the country, and improved business environment must be addressed in the short term to return the country to the path of economic stability.
If you look at the American recession that became a depression, the 1933 one and all that, they were overproducing. They had too much in manufacturing, too much in agriculture, overcapacity in railways. And that went into a recession and a depression. So in our case, it's obviously completely different. If we did not have the vandalization of pipelines in Niger Delta, we probably would not have entered negative territory by now. I mean, there's no way in the world that you can lose 1 million barrels of oil a day when you are projecting 2.2 million barrels of oil a day. And you won't suffer tremendously, especially where that same revenue is what drives your non-oil revenues. So I think that it's a different ball game, and even in looking at our solutions, we really have to look at those solutions that are peculiar to our circumstances. And I would really want to respectfully urge that we try and focus on the type of problems that we have and look at what solutions.
Adding her voice, the finance minister says Nigeria will borrow to pump up the economy for capital projects, even as she insists that interest rates must be reduced.
We are going to need to continue to borrow to pump money into the capital spend of this economy for the next few years. So let's be realistic about it.
The Minister for Budget and National Planning, Senator Udo Udoma, has reassuring words to the already disgruntled local investors who feel neglected despite being in greater majority than the foreign investors for which the government is looking to attract back to Nigeria.
We are determined to make it easier to do business in Nigeria. And we believe that working together with the private sector, we will surely transform this economy.
Meeting after meeting, and most talks are all the same. At a presidential business meeting, which had the governor of the central bank, Godwin Emefiele, in presence, Minister of Finance tells captains of industries present that lower interest rates are expected in a recession, urging the CBN to consider cutting the current 14% benchmark interest rate by banks to support government stimulus plan to borrow cheap funds locally to bail out the economy. But, dousing the high expectation of business concerns over lower rates, the governor of the central bank announced a retention of all monetary instruments in the current levels before the recession set in.
In direct efforts to deepen the foreign exchange market and stabilize the financial markets generally, a number of policy instruments were deployed since the last Monetary Policy Committee meeting, including an increase in the benchmark interest rates. Complementary administrative measures were also taken towards achieving this goal, among which was the directive to IMTUs to sell forex directly to bureau de change operators in order to improve liquidity in that segment of the foreign exchange market. While challenges remained, committee expressed optimism that with the crystallization of current policy measures, noticeable improvements should be observed in the financial markets going forward. The committee's considerations. The committee acknowledged the weak macroeconomic performance and the challenges confronting the economy, but noted that the Monetary Policy Committee had consistently called attention to the implications of the absence of robust fiscal policy to complement monetary policy in the past. The committee also assessed the impact of its decision to tighten the stance of monetary policy by raising the monetary policy rate in July 2016. At this time, the committee understood the complexity of the challenges facing the economy and the difficulty of arriving at an optimal policy mix to address rising inflation and economic contraction simultaneously. Committee also recognized that monetary policy had been substantially burdened since 2009 and had been stretched. The committee noted with relish that new capital flows into the economy, approximately $1 billion, had come in since July, while month-on-month inflation had declined continuously since May of 2016. Against this background, members re-emphasized the need to prioritize the use of monetary policy instruments in dealing essentially with stability issues around key prices, consumer price and exchange rate as a prerequisite for growth. The MPC noted that stagflation is indeed a very difficult economic condition with no quick fixes, having been imposed by supply shocks as well as fiscal and current account twin deficits. Consequently, the policy framework must be re-engineered urgently to provide a lever for reversing the negative growth trend. While the imperative for ensuring financial system stability remains, the MPC reiterated the fact that monetary policy alone cannot move the economy out of stagflation.
The CBN governor says previous rate cuts put pressure on the economy as the lower rates fueled the demand for forex. He also says making provisions for government to borrow at lower rates might stimulate demand, but also create a risk of very high demand with much less supply.
The calls came mainly from the belief that reducing interest rates will spur credit growth, not only in the private sector, but also by the public sector, which will help provide liquidity to stimulate consumption and investment spending. The committee was of the view that in the past, the MPC had cut rates to achieve the above objectives, but found that rather than deploy the available liquidity to provide credit to agriculture and manufacturing sectors, the rate cuts provided opportunities for lending to traders who deployed the same liquidity in putting pressure on the foreign exchange market, which had limited supply, thus pushing up exchange rate. With respect to providing opportunity to public sector to borrow at lower rates to boost consumption and investment spending, the committee agreed that although it was expected to stimulate growth through aggressive spending, doing so without corresponding efforts to boost industrial output by taking actions to deepen foreign exchange supply for raw materials will not help reduce unemployment, nor will it boost industrial capacities. The committee was also of the view that consumer demand for goods, which will be boosted through increased spending, may indeed be chasing too few goods, which may further exacerbate the already heightened inflationary conditions. The urgency of monetary and fiscal policy retreat along the trade and budgetary policy to design comprehensive intervention mechanisms is long overdue. The bank has since 2009 expanded its balance sheet to bail out the financial system and support growth initiatives in the economy, while stimulating economic growth and creating a congenial investment climate always is and remains essentially the realm of fiscal policy, while monetary policy in all cases comes in to support sound fiscal policy. The bank has and shall continue to deploy its development finance interventions to complement the overall efforts of fiscal policy towards reinvigorating the economy.